Al.
Yes.
Hey, Dave Lawrence, Hawaii Public Radio.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for asking. Yourself?
I'm very good, very good. How is it in the islands?
It's warming up for you, my friend, day by
Is it really?
day. Yeah, man. I mean, this is an exciting thing to have you coming back, but it's good here. We can't complain. Got your
That's
health.
nice.
When you got your health, you got a lot, right? You don't want to start complaining because it could go downhill.
That's right. That's right. You
And,
got that.
can you hear me okay? Do I need to turn myself
Yeah,
up or you're
really good. Really
excellent?
good, yeah.
And are you on just so I know the technical, are you on a cell or a landline?
I'm on a cell.
All right, and you've got the actual phone up to your mouth with the mic
Yeah.
on. Great, perfect. Thank you, my brother. Let me just put a real short introduction on it and we'll get started. Is that cool?
Go ahead, yeah.
And I'm recording it. We'll play it. We're going to play it next week. All right,
Okay.
here we go. It's member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, all things considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence. What a treat to have among the world's finest guitarists joining us ahead of his dates coming up on Wednesday through Sunday, September 6th through the 9th. Blue Note in Waikiki, bringing his Elegant Gypsy 40th anniversary tour to the Aloha State. A huge thrill to welcome Al Meola to the show. Brother Al, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. We're really happy to be coming back. It's been a long time.
When was the last time you were here?
I can't even recall. I mean, it's been a while.
Decades, right?
It could. Well, I was coming there a lot. I was not only in Honolulu, but I was in Maui quite often in the early '80s. In fact, I almost bought a place there, and I was friends with George Benson. I was visiting quite often.
Oh, yeah, right. He lived
But
there.
playing there, geez, it's got to be more than 20 years,
Unbelievable. Well,
I know.
huge that you're coming back now. 40th anniversary tour for Elegant Gypsy. And first of all, I guess, describe for folks who's in the band you're going to have with you in Hawaii and explain a little bit about these live shows you'll be doing for this record.
Well, last show is kind of like Elegant Gypsy and more because we cover some other periods within the career, and over 30 records we had to pick some other ones, of course. So we play from Elegant Gypsy Casino, something from Kiss My Ex, something from the last recording. There'll be a little acoustic set that we fit in there with some recognizable pieces. Yes, we cover a broad spectrum of what the audience really wants, I think, in the end. And I'm as far as musicians, I've got with me Gumby Ortiz, who's played in probably 20 different bands I've had over the years. So he's been with me for like 30 years, on and off, mostly on. I've got Elias Tona on bass from Venezuela. Luis Alicia on drums. They're all kind of based in Florida right now, but he was from New Jersey, where I was born. And we've got a new keyboard player, Phil Magallanes. And we have this amazing violinist who's like, Jean-Luc Ponty protege, and that's Evan Garr from Detroit, so rounds out the band.
Yeah, and I was taking a look at something online, a video. That dude is a monster. You're not even kidding about that. And thinking about monsters, I've read it was at a very early age. And I think now, because I think a long time ago when me and you were kids, people didn't realize the impact of early childhood development, which you hear about a lot now. And through talking to cats, you kind of find that that's always been an important thing. And I read that at an early age, you knew you wanted to play guitar. Share the story of how you first gravitated to it and came to that realization.
Well, it was probably, due to my sister, who's 7 years older than I was, bringing home all of these recordings, these, at the time, 45 vinyl discs. And so the house was filled with music at that point. And I think it was a party she had at the house, and some of her friends brought over their amps and guitars, and that was the first time I actually touched the instrument. And I knew right then to, take lessons and take guitar lessons. It's a smart move.
So that's a great story of how the instrument arrives in your life. But then when I think about your style, breathtaking speed, precision, and you can hear it really early on. Before discovering Larry Coryell, had you already started working on that speed and precision, or was it really finding his music that pushed you forward?
There was this small. There was a period in my mid-teens where where I started to like bluegrass music, and I was listening to those speed pickers like Doc Watson and Clarence White, and I was actually turned on to that kind of precision playing. Are you there?
Oh, I totally lost you there, brother. Again,
Oh man, we got a bad connect.
Are you we could try. Okay, you want me to recall it again? I can do that.
How is it now? How are we now?
Right now, you sound great. I don't know if it's a moving. Okay.
I was moving before, so I'll stay right where I am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I had that little bluegrass period, and then I got so into country music at one point that I actually switched to pedal steel and dropped guitar. And then I quickly realized that all those years I had studied the guitar will go down the drain, so I then gave it up and got back into it. So right around the age of, I guess it was 15 or 16, I got my first taste of some early fusion, and then I delved completely into jazz. Now, my early training when I was 8 and 9 years old was from a jazz guitar player. So I was learning a lot of the standards and a lot of the things that had to do with jazz, even though I didn't want to. But my teacher, it's kind of like that's the way he was going, even though I was listening to the Ventures and the Beatles and all of that early pop stuff that I still love today.
What was the first concert you went to?
I went to see the Rascals.
Not a surprise in that area.
You know what I mean? You know who they were?
Felix Cavallari and the gang.
Yeah, Cavallari. Yeah. He's still playing.
Yeah.
Out there doing it. It was a great show. It was, and I guess I was about 14 or 15. No, 14. I was definitely 14 because at 15 I had the great opportunity of going out west with my mom to California, and by myself I went to the Fillmore West, which was like a dream of all of my friends to go to the Fillmore West. We were going to the Fillmore East quite often in the village, but Fillmore West was like where it all began.
Oh, that's huge, and I can imagine. I remember when I got to go to the Fillmore Auditorium, which, as you know, is the one that's still in operation, and I had the same sort of feeling. Though decades apart, I should say, because it's only a few years later in your life than what we're talking about. I went to Emerson, and I did that because of a lifelong friend, Anthony Geminani, who was going to Berkeley. So what led to you enrolling, and how long did you actually study there before you got the Return to Forever gig?
I think it was, a little less than a year, a semester and a half.
Amazing.
And, when I went there, they had asked me to teach there. I wasn't interested in that. But while I was there, I went to see Return to Forever, which was, at the time, one of the two of my favorite bands. The Beatles. I love the Beatles, but of course, forget that. Return to Forever was the other band, and they had the guitar role in that group was really, really attractive to me. And when I went to see them this one time, they had filling in for Bill Connors. They had Earl Klug. So I had mentioned to a friend of mine that they have Earl Klug in the band, and he's kind of out of place. Great guitarist, but out of place in playing electric stuff, since he's primarily acoustic player. And he took it upon himself, this friend of mine, to find Chick and hand deliver him a tape of my playing. And that was it was just great timing. I think Chick was really looking for someone who was more electric, prone, and that was it.
I guess I bring that up about how long you stayed there because I used to go over there pretty frequently because of my buddy, and they had these incredible cafeteria gigs on the weekends where students would do tribute gigs, mostly for Genesis, Santana, Almonds I saw once, Rush, Yes, and I was just curious, did they do stuff like that back when you were there, or was that something that evolved later?
No. At Berkeley, you mean?
Yeah.
No, I don't recall any of that because I was at Berkeley in 74.
Right.
73 to 74.
And kids weren't doing that yet in the cafeteria?
No.
Neat.
No.
Well, that's cool. It's the evolution of it, and I was always curious about that with
But
you.
I saw those bands at the Fillmore East,
Right, you saw the real bands, you're saying.
Yeah, so the real bands, and, it was that inspiration was, part of my education.
And part of your sound, really, too. That's a good point that you make. And when I think about the tone on, let's say, Land of the Midnight Sun, for example, and The Wizard, just to start it off, and that for a guy who grew up with hard rock and metal, that was such an easy bridge to me. And you just named some of the rock bands that you had enjoyed seeing. On that note, back then, what was influencing your tone? And were you into any of the heavier rock guitarists that were popular then, like Iommi from Sabbath or Ritchie Blackmore?
No, I wasn't into Blackmore or Black Sabbath so much. I was aware of them, but I was more into, and I like the Allman Brothers. I like Santana. I like when Mahavishnu came on the scene. Shortly thereafter that, I got to do with Return to Forever. John was using that Les Paul through a Marshall sound, so that was the bridge for me, as well.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. I get that. Well, and that for me was the kind of the bridge into the fusion in my senior year of high school, getting into like the live record that they did, the Intermounting Flame, the Birds of Fire, and then Between Nothingness and Eternity, I guess it was called. I mean, there were so many different crazy jams, and McLaughlin really did crank it up and make it really heavy. So that makes sense for
yeah. Well, that's what fusion was. It was the bridge between rock and and jazz, and it brought a lot of people into appreciating more sophisticated music, So we were spearheading a whole new movement,
Oh, you totally were. I mean, and those tones were not common anywhere else in jazz. That's why I guess I point them out. They were really a pioneering thing. And so thinking about Elegant Gypsy, 40 years later, I was introduced to that record by a cover that was critical to me getting into your solo catalog. It was a classic early 80s metal band, Riot. And do you know their cover of Racing with the Devil?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Oh, I was honored that they did that, It's not like I'm a pop star where everybody covers my music.
And they smoked that thing.
Great. I finally got a band to do one of my songs.
Like we were talking about with the fusion of elements, that was really a band that appreciated kind of what I did too, which was the heavy side of you. And I just thought that was such a faithful cover. And so you enjoyed that when it came out, huh?
Yeah, I remember that, sure.
That's cool. With that riff, Racing with the Devil, one of your heaviest riffs, can you share anything about the writing process, the inspiration for it?
God, I didn't really acknowledge it really says a lot about what I listened to in the past and where I was going with the influences that I was obtaining from playing in a band with such a great writer like Chick. You know? So it was, I was in a good place. Plus I was really Latin influenced, and so, combining, Latin influence with the rock and the from Chick, it was just, the melding of those three proved to be, fruitful. Elegant Gypsy into Casino, that was the pinnacle of that kind of sound, for me.
And those were huge. That was. I mean, that's, I'm assuming, a big part of the set, right? You're doing Racing with the Devil as part of this set, yeah?
Yeah, it's like we have to do it.
Right, exactly. It's like, just making sure. Because like you said, you got a lot of material, and you've continued to do a lot of things.
Yeah, we do Midnight Tango, we do Race, we do Egyptian Danza, we do Senor Mouse, we do something in the RTF catalog as well. So it's kind of like the hits plus and more,
It's going to be gigantic. And I was looking at, I know you first discovered the music of Paco de Lucia while you were in Spain with Return to Forever. It's a great story. Tell the story of having your record company end up bringing him to New York to record with you at Electric Ladyland, and it would become Mediterranean Sundance.
Yeah. Well, the first tour I did with Return to Forever was in '74. I was still 19. And when we hit the country of Spain on that first European tour, there was a lot of talk about this young flamenco player that was just, lighting up the sky, and it's just everybody was talking about him. So I went to the local department store which was called El Corte Inglés. It's still there. They're in all the major cities in Spain. And I went to the record department when they had record departments.
Right.
And I just bought like a whole bunch of his records. I think he had like, maybe at the time only 3 or 4 actually. But when I went home and I played them, I said, this guy's got a technique that stands well above all of those other flamenco players, and he's got a sense of rhythm that is extraordinary. It set him apart from the guys like Sabicas and all the older school flamenco guys. And I just imagined that doing something with him. I thought of it, and then when the opportunity came after Land of the Midnight Sun, because that first record was very successful for CBS. So going into the second recording for CBS, which was Elegant Gypsy, I said, man, I'm gonna take that leap. So I asked the A&R people at CBS before it became Sony, of course, and I asked them to see if they could find, which record company he's on, and see if they could find an A&R person from there, and try to hook us up, which is what they did. They I think it was RCA at the time for him. Yeah, they must have told him it was a good opportunity for him, because I had a certain popularity for him to become well known over here. And,
sure.
It just he comes over, speaks no English at all, and he's a friend with him, kind of translating. He was nervous beyond belief. No need to be nervous.
Say that again. You broke up. Start on with the nervous part.
Oh yeah. You know what? I started them again. Let me go back to that area. That's really good. How is it now?
It sounds better. Sorry about that too, Al. Just trying to get your thing.
Go on. So anyway, he comes to New York from Spain and arrives nervous as all hell. The thing that pulled him out was he just needed some smoke. He needed that. So I wasn't really into it, but my friend said, "Hey, look, I'll get him something." So the first day, nothing came out of it because he was so nervous. Second day, my friend comes with a little bit of ganja, and then it was the first take.
One take, unbelievable.
It was one of those magic moments. There's not really a lot in the recording career where you go, that was pure magic. And I think we do. Holy shit, we got a great thing here.
Wow. And then it would lead to so much, the collaborations and stuff with him.
An actual hit single in Spain and in Germany. It was on the radio nonstop with all of the pop stars. It was, that could never be today. But then we actually had a hit single in 2 countries. And very well known all over the world, by the way.
It's mind-boggling. And you're right, not the kind of thing that would happen today.
No.
And in more ways than one, because the record business is hardly...
The record business is destroyed.
Right, hardly even exists.
Yeah.
And another great segue, thinking about the record business, you recorded a track, you've done a couple things with this guy, but on Splendido Hotel, the track with Les Paul, Spanish Eyes, share some background on that. Was that the first time you got to do anything with him or hang with him?
Well, he lived pretty close to me in New Jersey, and I had met him at a show that I was doing. In fact, it was the first show with my band after Return to Forever broke up. So we're talking about 1976, I believe, and I was about 21 years old, and I had my first show at the Beacon Theater, and it was like a kind of a big event for me. And Columbia, CBS Records went all out on it. And who shows up? Well, first I should say I'm in my backstage in my dressing room, and I'm warming up on my black Les Paul, and then I hear a voice from the back of me, and this voice goes, "Hey, what kind of guitar is that?" And as I turn, I said, "It's a Les Paul." And as I turn around, and there's Les Paul. Before I said Paul, there he was.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and I nearly fainted. So since then we had become, it was years after. We were quite good friends, and I had to invite him to his house. He came over to my house many times, and he couldn't get over the right hand picking technique that I had. He would literally get down on the floor and study my right hand. He says, I just can't understand how you do that. And there'd be in my house, and he'd be down there studying my right hand. Look at this guy. He invented recording, multi-track recording and reverb. He invented that too.
And there he is studying your picking technique.
Yeah. It was like, out of a dream.
So you really developed quite a rapport, I guess, by the time that June 11th, 1987, 72nd birthday happens with you and Jimmy Page and all those cats, Tony Bennett, Jeff Beck, Rick Derringer. That by the time that happened, you already were you were tight friends, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Very much so, yep.
Is that a memory that's special for you, that one time jamming on his birthday with Jimmy Page? Or
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, I don't think Jimmy remembers it too well. I think he was still, flying on the big H.
Right, right.
I seem to remember, but it was a great event.
And you didn't play with Tony Bennett. That was like a separate part of the night?
I didn't play with Tony, no. In fact, you're reminding me that he was there. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because he came on after, right? I mean, it was just it's one of those things, if you're an Al Di Meola fan, your heart it starts beating a little faster to watch that particular thing. Kind of like listening to when Frank Zappa invited you to do a gig with him in New York for both a song he had written for you, Clowns on Velvet, and a cover of Ride Like the Wind. Memories of that night? Yeah.
Well, the night before he calls me, I had never talked to him before, and I was a fan. I had seen him many times at the Fillmore East, and never thought in a million years that Frank Zappa would be calling me. And I just remember watching TV, and I was, hello? Hi, Al, this is Frank Zappa here. And I go, oh, my God. It definitely was Frank right away. You get that deep voice,
Right.
And he said, look, I wrote this song that I'd love for you to come down and play with us tomorrow night. We'll be at the Ritz. And I said, yeah, but you know what? I'm there. So I went down to the sound check. He had it all written out. And I just read it, and that was it.
And that was it, the only time that you ever ended up playing with him?
That was the only time, and in fact, Steve Vai was in the band, who I didn't know of at all. In fact, I didn't know about him until years later, that was him.
Right.
But they were all excited that I came down, and it was a really good experience,
I bet it was.
Yeah.
A cat that we've mentioned him before, but considering how important he factors into your development, and only through this interview did I really realize it, was John McLaughlin.
Yeah.
When did you first get to interact with him? Because obviously you're a fan really early from the beginning of the Mahavishnu stuff. When did you first cross paths with him?
Oh, well, you mean personally talking to him?
Yeah.
Things like that? I think we were label mates on CBS.
You were?
We must have met. Yeah. I mean, Mahavishnu was on CBS, and by the time that I signed with CBS, I think he was into the second version of the band, I believe. So Jan and Billy were already out of the band, and he had reformed it. And I might have met him at a concert or something along the way.
That was when he had John Luke in the band and Narada Michael Walden and stuff.
Yeah, that's the band I think it was. Yeah, at the time, and I might have seen them, and then we met maybe backstage, perhaps. But then, just a couple of years later, we were. I was approached first by this impresario, kind of like an agent, who happens to be McCartney's guy right now. He does everything for McCartney. He books all the shows around the world and everything. But he started in the business with us. But he first approached me and Paco to do a trio with Leo Kottke.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that would be cool, because I had that little country period where I was listening to Leo.
Right.
I thought it was odd. I thought it was kind of odd, but I was like, wow. is interesting. I was a big Leo fan and a Paco fan. And, of course, Paco had already recorded on my album. So, and we had talked about the idea of doing something together. And there it was. But it wasn't until about a month before we were to get together that Barry Marshall, who was the impresario guy, he called me and said, hey, what's your thoughts on, like, John McLaughlin doing it instead of Leo? I said, well, if you get John, then I think between John, myself, and Paco, you're going to have a powerhouse trio. That's going to be a blockbuster. And it's exactly what happened. We did a 2-month tour, starting in Europe, and we ended in San Francisco. We recorded a lot of shows, maybe all the shows, but we were playing almost every night, so our chops were like beyond ridiculous. I listen to those records now, and I don't know if I could do that anymore. But it was just 2 months of really healthy competition, is how I would term it. We were definitely competing, but in a healthy way. There was a really good dialogue and back and forth conversation. And we were really trying to impress one another. And in turn, the audience got a blast out of it, But, one guy took a solo, and it was, like, mind-blowing. It's like, oh, shoot, now it's my turn. I got to come up with something that I've never done before. It was that kind of pressure that provided great listening and in turn, provided, the recording that eventually came out as Friday Night in San Francisco,
And that's
breaking up again.
You get right back in that little good spot. You were sounding wonderful.
Yeah, that little spot. That record really, was the result of 2 months of touring, almost every night, and it still is a landmark recording. It's still, people talk about it all the time. In fact, I have a Saturday Night in San Francisco, 2-inch reels in my basement studio that should be released.
From that Warfield.
Everybody's approval.
From the Warfield shows the next night.
Yeah, from the Warfield. We have enough for another record. And years ago we approached McLaughlin as manager, and they weren't really keen on it. So, but that was maybe 20 years ago, so 15, 20 years ago. So it's worth checking with Paco's widow to see if, she would be interested in that coming out again,
I think so, and certainly on and that's maybe John would go for it too. But
if his widow went for it, he might go for it. It would really have to be that kind of thing.
Right, I get it. Having her on board would make him more receptive.
Yeah.
No, it makes.
Yeah, and Paco's name and all of that,
Yep, it's a great way to honor him too. What you're talking about is.
Yeah, the timing is pretty good for that. Try to keep Paco's thing alive.
And as just a wrapping up note, and it kind of brings everything full circle to end on that note, because when you think about it, Al, that trip to San Francisco, such an important thing when you were so young, and going to not just San Francisco, but Bill Graham's venue, and then all those years later, Friday Night in San Francisco, to watch Bill introduce you guys on stage, that had to feel... That in and of itself, I'm just guessing, maybe not, but that had to be a pretty monumental thing, because that was the guy from the Fillmore.
Monumental beyond words, because I was just this 14, 15-year-old kid going to the Fillmore East, and I would see Bill out on the sidewalk, and the hippies, we were all hippies back then, but everybody was into paying almost nothing for a ticket. And they were all accusing him of being, this kind of, a rip-off kind of ticket guy, and, just a capitalist pig. And they were calling all kinds of names. And he would fight back. And I'll never forget that. I watched this guy. If it wasn't for him, these acts wouldn't be there. And I couldn't understand why the people online were, like, screaming at him, yelling at him. And I'll never forget it. And here it is years later, him introducing me and Paco and John stage, and also as I've done out in San Francisco. But I will never forget it. I always had great respect for this guy, Just a great man.
And was that the only time you ever had like a real personal kind of professional experience with him?
Well, I've been to his office many times. We've hung out. He's called me at home many times. Santana, that was, if they were playing in New York, he would call me at the house to come. Hey, Al, why don't you come down? Carlos would love for you to sit in. I was like, whoa, I just can't. This is like a dream come true. And that was still when I was still in my 20s. Quite a long time ago.
You had a lot of dreams come true. We're really looking.
I did.
Really, and you're a gifted dude. I remember meeting you one time at Scullers decades ago. You were so nice in Boston, where because as I told you, I went to Emerson, so I lived there a long time, and
yeah.
I was just blown away then getting to watch you. I can't wait to see you when you're here. I'm really hoping if there's any way you'd be willing to do like a brief follow-up interview or something when you come to town.
Sure.
That would mean
let's do it.
The world.
I'm there a number of days, so I'll be glad to.
And did this keep you somewhat entertained today? Were you engaged in your mind, the questions?
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I'm out in the Hamptons right now with my family, and we're kind of on a little vacation, so yeah, I was really interested.
Say that one more time. You broke up. I'm sorry, Al.
Oh, we're out in the Hamptons right now with my family, and so was, I knew about the interview. I was really looking forward to it, So we should continue it when I get there.
We will for sure.
A lot to talk about.
There's a lot, and I cut a lot of stuff out just to get to the meaty, and there's you're right, there's chapters left.
Hi, this is Al D. Meola, and you're listening to my good buddy Dave Lawrence.
Awesome. I will see you when you get here. I'll coordinate stuff with Nicole, I guess, is who to do that with?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Be safe. Enjoy the time with your family. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
My pleasure, Dave.
Al D. Meola.
Talk to you soon.
I'll see you then. Aloha, brother.